by thinking so much differently. Hey, so pardon me while I burst into flames. Can you guess what this episode is about? The block is literally hot, part two. Because we did a block is literally hot episode about the privatization of your water, the causes of climate change, and all of those various things. This was back early when I just joined the Cool Zone Media team, the iHeart Radio podcast network. Like basically when I went from the indies to the majors with podcasting. The block is literally hot. I will probably link that in the show notes somewhere. But yeah, I said that. But why would I start it that way? Welcome to Hood Politics with Prop, season 5. What I was going to talk about today was a memoriam. Memoriam, is that the word? Yeah. An honoring episode on the passing of Nikki Giovanni and the way for which she changed my life. But that's going to have to go sit into the evergreen section. And that was mainly because it was very difficult for us to get like a jump start back into the year as the year started again because of the quademic norovirus, the RSV virus. I got dumb sick over the holidays. Like, not even funny. Like, dumb sick. I got all the sicknesses. Maybe not the COVID one, but I got the 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 sinus one where the sinuses felt spicy. Like it was like I felt like somebody took their two knuckles and punched me in the face just like this. I think I talk about that on one of the episodes that we recorded before LA caught on fire, which was about immigration, which at some point is going to have to drop probably next week. But this week is this one. Man, nobody was like ready to really get back to work. And then basically this episode called for a but look it's like this all wrapped in one in the sense that yeah the 2025 came out all gas no brakes, like it was absurd. And it was crazy because I didn't see nobody put out those, the meme of the lady. I think I talked about this too on an episode you're gonna hear later. The meme of the lady, the black lady, with the backpack of the good things for 2020, stepping over last year into this year. Didn't nobody post that at the end of 2024. Everybody was nervous coming into this year. Nobody said 2025 was my year. Nobody did. Apparently, we collectively knew something was about to happen. Now, let me acknowledge to y'all who might be listening on a podcast app, we have also pivoted to video because we're not dinosaurs now, which means this episode is on YouTube. Now, if you are on my Patreon, you already got this episode. But if you're not, we've pivoted. We're on YouTube now. We're doing the video pod because that's the thing. So that means that I could show y'all my Terraform Cold Brew mug. I could show y'all my Stanley Who Mere Terraform the City mug. You know what I'm saying? And you can see my pretty little face. You know what I'm saying? You can see the pores. And, you know what I'm saying? Eventually, I'm gonna get a better camera. But we just doing this anyway. So today, obviously, we have to talk about LA on fire. We are going to go through some of the problems, some of the causes, selling the water. I told you about that already. Why not the ocean? A lot of people talking about why aren't y'all using salt water? Why aren't y'all using the ocean? And there is a stupid, absurd amount of misinformation going on, swirling through these streets. And we need to address that and stop the cap because the cap is helping nobody. And then we're going to talk about the culture out here, the ways that you can help from where you are, and really just, and the history of Altadena, which is a very, very important thing that is really near, dear, and dear to me because your boy's from the 626. So, of course, this is going to be special to me. Y'all ready to ride? Okay, let's do this. The block is literally hot. Part two, hood politics. Hood politics, y'all. All right. Okay, so look, it's like this. Let's go ahead with that. Yeah, unconditional discharge. You know what that means? That means the felon in chief, President Trump, is not going to face any consequences or repercussions, even though he's still going to be called a felon. Now, the sentencing we talking about is the New York case about falsifying documents, payment of Stormy Daniels, the only one that we thought was actually going to land a conviction. And turns out, yes, we were right, landed a conviction. 34 counts. He's getting what's called an unconditional discharge, which basically means this. I'm going to quote it, okay? It essentially is a resolution that allows for the conviction to stand and preserves the sanctity of the jury's verdict, but ensures that there are very limited consequences stemming from the conviction. This is Sarah Kissoff, a former federal prosecutor. She pointed out that though an unconditional discharge carries some consequences depending on the state, for example, a felon is not able to vote or own a firearm. Trump is barred from being able to purchase a firearm in either New York or Florida following his conviction, though he did vote for himself in his presidential election. So basically, they like, okay, so you guilty. No, you did it, but that's it. So he don't have to pay no fine. He don't have to do no community service, and he for sure ain't got to do no jail time. Mainly because, well, he gonna be the president in 2 days. So I mean, what you go like? I don't. I mean, what can we do? Like, there's no time for you to actually do the thing. He was even gonna try to last stitch effort, kick it up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is like, what the hell you want me to say? Like, there's you done already put us in place to make sure that you completely immune from anything anyway. So just you're gonna be the president in 2 days. There's no reason for us to talk about it. So they kicked it back down, and he's getting an unconditional discharge. To which I have to say, like I said earlier this year, if Big Homie beat these charges, the plan was to wait the clock out. He said that was the plan, and I don't understand. Like I told y'all before, I don't understand why every court didn't talk to each other and say, you know, he's just trying to stall us out, right? This man is making us look lame. To which we have to just be like, salute. Yo, kung fu is greater than America's. I like you can't like you at some point you gotta respect the hustle. And at this point, okay, I don't like I don't know what you beat the charges. He fought the law and won. Now the law didn't win. He fought the law and he won. And like we were saying before, which is a real possibility, that at this type of winning streak this man is on, I could see him figuring out how to be able to run a third term if the man stay alive. I could see him be like, "Oh, I'm gonna run a third term," and y'all only decided because of Roosevelt to only do 2 terms. We made that law up, so we can change that law. I could totally see this man doing that. In other news, there were 2 terrorist attacks. One which seemed very prophetic, which was the Tesla truck being caught on fire inside of a Trump lobby, which apparently was arson. What's up with y'all in arson this year? Now, I did drop a song called Burn It Down, but I meant metaphorically. I ain't mean literally, cuz. Anyway, then we had somebody who was born and raised in the good old US of A, in the heartland of Texas, rent a car from Turo, no less. So that means that car belonged to somebody. That's not even like a rental place. That's somebody's car. And drove that mug into the French Quarters, just running over people. And somehow that's all this year. Like how this year has been the longest week. This week has been the longest year. How is it only the 15th? There's a term called hypernormalization, which I'll probably do an episode on a little later, but I feel like we're experiencing that. Yeah, that's another conversation. Next, Zuckerberg basically was like slop, slop, gobble, gobble, Trump, which I never really talked that crude, but that's really just what happened. I don't know what else to tell y'all. So he basically like now y'all may or may not remember, but there was a time that Mark was thinking about running for president, and he tried to make the Democrat play. But you know, when you come to the cool kids table in the same way Drake tried to come back to the bungalows, and we was like, nigga, you're a weirdo. You don't belong here. Go back to the frat boys. Like just go over there. The problem with like Zuckerberg was like, well, the frat boys don't like you either. You a weirdo that made a website to rate chicks. Like I don't, you a weirdo. So he was like, I'll show all y'all and I'll get rich. And he did. So he was like, look, this is what we gonna do. We gonna be like X. I'm gonna stop fact checking. We gonna do community notes. Would you mean you gonna trust other Facebook users to tell Facebook wrong? Okay. He was like, we gonna put top Republican, what's the boy's name? Joel Kaplan. He gonna put him in charge of public policy at Meta. He done appointed Dana White, you know, the UFC boy. He done appointed him to be on the board. And then he gonna move the content moderators, all the mods. They leaving LA and they going to Texas because according to him, California has too much of a political bias. Because Texas don't. My man literally was like, you know, after the 2016 election, people really got tired of all the political gaslighting and rhetoric happening on the platform. So now this is what we gonna do. We gonna allow the political gaslighting and rhetoric without fact checking. Bro, what did you say? He basically removed any possibility of the right saying that social media and tech companies have a left leaning. Like y'all, there's no way you can say that now. Oh man, Amazon, Bezos, and them, because you know billionaires gonna billionate. Amazon and them, they done already cut the check to Melania for her to be able to make her own biodoc series. Yeah, they didn't like while she the. I thought you wasn't supposed to be. Well, ain't no. I thought you wasn't supposed to when it comes to this family. But like she like currently is the first lady. I just be feeling like maybe you supposed to wait till after. I mean, maybe it might be an interesting show, but what do I know? Anyway, LA on fire. Let's talk about it. All right, here we go. So I'm sure your news outlets or social medias has told you a space the size of Manhattan, and then another space the size of Chicago, and then sprinkled with a couple other states is gone. You there's part of me that felt like it was hard to make Americans have a perspective as to what Gaza must be like. Obviously, the difference is the Gaza thing was on purpose. Like these are bombs, and the death toll is absurd. So don't take my metaphor too far. But what I'm trying to say is there was a neighborhood here, and now there's not. And the smoke and the smell of just that I was out here vacuuming like air vac, like big old like shop vacuuming my driveway and porch from all the ashes once like the air kind of cleared up because look, checking in as you can see, I am not dead. As you can see, like my home is still standing. Who would have had on a bingo card that East Los Boyle Heights would be a safe area? But as I was vacuuming up the stuff, it was hitting me that like, man, it's somebody's house. I'm vacuuming somebody's dreams. Somebody worked a whole life to get to this because I'll talk about this later. Because contrary to what your dumbass auntie says, everybody in LA ain't rich. Even everybody in the Palisades ain't rich. Some of these people working 4 and 5 jobs worked a whole life. Some of these people just inherited the house because the Palisades existed before there was the Palisades, before the millionaires moved in. That might be that grandma house. Got it in the 40s. You don't know that. So I'm vacuuming up somebody's dreams. You got to remember too, like all them people got, who you think cleaning them houses? Who you think mowing them lawns? Do you think they got jobs now? No. And where do they live? They live in my side of town. So, you know, it ain't just, we're gonna talk about this later. Like I said, it ain't just like, oh, they rich, they got insurance. Like, hold on, Jake. You ain't from here. You still use terms like Angelino. Nobody from LA says Angelino. You still calling, you call, if you call something, look, let me know how, again, it's supposed to be in the culture part, but you know how I know you telling on yourself that you ain't from here? If you call it South LA. None of us call it that. Bitch, I'm from the land. How you hate LA if you ain't been below the 10? Look, I know Kendrick just said that, but you have to understand, like, we all say that. You ain't been south of the 10. I'm going to add east of the river because some people north of the 10, like Lincoln Heights, there's some real like northeast LA, like Vatos who've been here for a long time. You from the avenues? You ain't been to the avenues. You only been on York and Highland Park. Like, bro, you can't hate LA. You ain't been there. You ain't been to LA. That's one of my biggest arguments. I'm like, you haven't been to Crenshaw. You ain't been to LA. Like, you have not, I don't care. You've been to Hollywood, big dog. That's where you've been. So, here's the problem. Wildfires is normal. We have 4 seasons in LA. I've made this joke before. We got hot, rain, fire, wind. Not in that order. It's usually hot, fire, rain, wind, right? Those are our seasons. Right now, in January is normally rainy season. We're usually experiencing mudslides right now because the fires happened in November. You follow me? But the dude on the Joe Rogan podcast, I know this clip was going around, like, he was talking about a firefighter. Nigga, every firefighter knew this. One of my big homies, Dax Reynosa from my rap crew, Tunnel Rats, his brother-in-law, shout out Shay, my homegirl Shay. She's like my brother. Shay's so cute. Her husband, Chris. Chris is in charge of the La Habra fire station. He literally fighting fires right now. My mom worked at the West Covina Fire Department, retired from there, which is LA County. She worked in the fire science and on the account and admin side. 30 years, retired from there. They even tried to recruit her for the fire academy in Maryland. So, like, I know what I'm talking about. They all predicted this. They said one day the wind and the fire are going to happen at the same time. And when it happens, it ain't going to be shit we can do. They've been saying this my whole life, that like we just been getting lucky. And when it's urban, it's too dense. There'll be no there. It's we don't make our roads for this, which, you know, yay capitalism. Why do I say that? Because you could have made roads wider. You could have set it up to where just in case. Because when you go to places that know they're going to flood, when you go to places that know they get hurricanes, they build different. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't do it. Right? Los Angeles, ever since it became urban, has been dry. It's a dry area. We don't have a lot of natural fresh water. We did. The LA River used to not be paved. As a matter of fact, there is a movement now to like unpave it. You know, that will really help with a lot of our climate issues. You didn't have to pave it once it came down here. But our water, the San Gabriel Valley River that comes from the mountains is the LA River. So that was our natural water. But you couldn't build a city the size that it is except for Mulholland. So the thing way up in the northern, in the which is the beginning of our aqueduct, we took the water from there. LA, it's a sad thing. I know Throughline on NPR did a whole episode on where the aqueduct started and how we just kind of like, even Mulholland, that created the Mulholland Pass and the Mulholland Road. Like, I mean, he stole it. But they would say he stole it the way that America stole native land. Like, it is what it is. So we don't have natural water. It was already going to be an issue. is correct, but just for weird reasons, in the sense that, yeah, we don't take care of, nobody's listening to the natives. Nobody's listening to the folks that told y'all how to take care of this land. And some of that is, yeah, you have controlled burns, right? So that the stuff won't be intense. Now, obviously our carbon emissions are off the charts. Now, the smog that used to cover our city is not the way it used to be, the way that I used to, when I remember growing up in, which was like, I mean, sometimes they would cancel school. Like they're like the air is orange. It's just a big smog layer. And I remember flying into the city and always seeing it. And it was a part of like knowing I was home because the sky had like an orange layer over it. And the governor, believe it or not, he's part of why we don't got that smog problem like we used to. That has to do with stuff that, this is where like y'all huge capitalists, this is what y'all don't get. It's like he started making rules about emissions. He started talking about our cars. Why we got to get smog checks. Like, I mean, they're annoying, but I tell you what, you could breathe the air. And it's really helped. But our carbon footprint is so high. We're trapping too much thing. The air is dry. We don't get a lot of rain. We naturally don't get a lot of rain. On top of that, climate change, it was like this was the perfect storm. It was bound to happen. So the Palisades, I don't need to tell y'all. I'm thinking I don't need to tell y'all. So the Palisades is up by Malibu. It's a incredibly wealthy area where a lot of celebrities live. But like I said, I'm gonna talk about the culture later. Like, not everybody over there is celebrities. Some of them people are just really hardworking dentists. Some of them people got that house from their grandma. Some of them people, you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not just like, you can't just be heartless about the stuff. Like, people work hard out here. Now, the other part that's really big is the Eden Fire, and that is where the city of Altadena is. Now, I have a trillion times talk about how I'm from the 626. The 626 is an area code in an area called the San Gabriel Valley, 20 minutes east of South Central. That's West Covey. If you know my raps, you know all these things that I'm talking about. Now, the northern tip of that is Pasadena and Altadena. I've always known those areas as black. Now, this is where Jackie Robinson's from. Now, the thought never crossed my mind as to why it was black, because when you were a child, like before I moved to the 626, I was the east side of South Central. My family, like, we're black as hell. So I lived in a black world. My neighbors were Latino. Like I said, I lived on the borderlands between the Mexican and Latino neighborhoods, or Mexican and black neighborhoods. But like, I lived in a black world. My father was a Black Panther. Like, so I just was like, I don't know, like, you do like little city, you were in like city, sports things. I remember the Arco Jesse Owens games. Now, if you really from the city, you remember this. Like, this was like a youth track thing, and Pasadena running Rebels. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that was the little youth like sports, program out there. That was their little track team. They was all black. So Pasadena and Altadena, although for us, we were like, these houses are bigger than ours. Like, they're really nice. They're a lot older. But it's a black neighborhood. I've always known it as a black neighborhood. There was also Bloods up there. Big Hit, as in Hit Boy, his daddy, like, they're from Pasadena. He moved to the IE, but like, I've always known that area as black. Now, too much into it, this really had to do with the civil rights movement. This area is very woody. It's right at the foothills of the Angeles Mountains. And because of the civil rights movement, integration, redlining laws, because historic Los Angeles was down on the east side of South Central, east of the 110, right? Which is all Latino now, but that was very working class, organizing. 44th and Central, like I said, where the Black Panthers thing was, where my family was at, that was very working class. But once there was the possibility for black people to enter the middle class, where you can get a little bigger homes, that was up in Altadena. And some of that had to do with, well, I'm going to read this Altadena Heritage article here, or the end of it. It says, Altadena's present day diversity came into being largely during the tumult of the social age change in the 1960s and 70s. The civil rights movement, protests against Vietnam, and the rising youth culture and other assets of this present day played out locally in lawsuits around school integration, neighborhoods, carved apart by new freeways, redevelopments, and conflicts in Pasadena's. All of these causes, along with a thickening layer of smog, pillowing against the mountains, prompted half of Altadena's population to leave in a flurry of white flight. And the new residents were mainly people of color. So, because of that area and white flight, we got us a neighborhood. Now, most of the people, a lot of people I grew up with, a lot of black people I grew up with, they grandma and them. Just like, so a lot of our grandma and them's was in Crenshaw, but the gang stuff like really made that impossible. A lot of our elders, a lot of our parents, their homes are up there, right? And they're really historic homes. So the Altadena one like hit us really deeply. A lot of old jazz musicians, Madlib, the producer, he lost his crib. DJ Severe, his parents. DJ Severe is the DJ for the LA Dodgers. His parents lost their crib. His grandparents lost their crib. The house he grew up in gone. It sucked. A lot of times we were able to buy houses because of the GI benefits after World War II, right? Because remember, most of the people that was drafted were people of color. So you get these like housing grants after, and because of redlining and zoning laws, there were only specific areas black people were allowed to buy in. It's the same in California. It wasn't no utopia. So losing Altadena is a really big blow to not only LA, but the black community, period. Okay, now let's talk about some science next. Okay. One of the things people kept asking I saw on the internet was like, why y'all not just using the ocean? How y'all talk about there's not enough water in the fire hydrants when you next to the ocean? I don't understand. Well, let me help you understand. Okay, first of all, the ocean is salt water. And the salt water, you may or may not know, is corrosive, right? So if you spray the whole town with salt water, this is going to make cleanup damn near impossible because of what is left standing, some of the metal or the brick or stuff like that. The chemical reactions, it's only going to cause problems. So it makes cleanup after the fire is out almost impossible. Secondly, believe it or not, it's heavier. I know that's weird to say, but ocean water is heavier than fresh water. It is what it is, right? And then another reason, which is probably again one of the stronger ones, is like it's gonna kill the vegetation. So because the vegetation on the land, it come from rain and fresh water. That's not ocean water that's feeding your plants. If you ever have any hope for the ground to restore itself and grow, you just douse it with salt water. Like you killing it. Like you're killing the ground. So on first thought, you would think that just use the ocean. It's really not a good idea because it makes cleanup impossible. It's corrosive and it's gonna kill the vegetation. Okay, next one. Why did it take so long for them to get it contained? It was the wind. Now, like I said, normally the Santa Ana winds, which is something that we've all lived with, usually doesn't coincide with fire season, right? So the winds is just something that, like, I mean, I got for all my Cali folk, like I said, since I grew up in the SGV, I still went to high school in the Inland Empire. And out there, like, I mean, they would shut down school because it would knock down trees. Like the wind, the Santa Anas is not a game in the Inland Empire. Even at my mom's house, there's a tree behind the retaining wall in her backyard that knocked over. It broke the retaining wall. It didn't break her window until the city came in to cut the rest of the tree down, and then that broke their window. But it's absurd. But the winds is something that, like, we know that's going to be a problem. So it's just the combination of them both happening at the same time is awful. The next thing I want to talk about is a combination of misinformation and what really went on with the government. Okay. Now, far be it from me to get on this camera and defend Karen Bass or Gavin Newsom. I don't trust nobody slick their hair back the way that Gavin Newsom do. That being said, if you gonna be mad at him for the right reasons. Okay. Because some of this is just incorrect. You know, I hate in a situation where you make me defend somebody I don't really mess with. Like when Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg was gonna have a UFC match when they was gonna like grapple. I was like, how dare you? How dare you? Because who would I rather see get their ass kicked? I mean, now it's a tough question because at first it would have been like, oh, I want to see Elon get mopped, but how dare you make me cheer for Mark Zuckerberg? You know, I think I may still feel like that. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so how dare you make me defend Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom? Because the reality is we've been taking care of ourselves, but we'll talk about that in the culture section. The first question is about where was Karen Bass when it started and what was wrong with the fire hydrants? First of all, that little video of her getting off the plane after she was coming back from Ghana. Apparently, poor lady was on her honeymoon. So she coming back from Ghana and she ain't got nothing to say while poor lady waiting on her bags. They was like, yo, why you ain't cut the thing? Okay, so again, far be it for me to defend this woman, but I will say this. Sometimes, I mean, it take a long time to get home. Like it take a long time to get home. And you think if you put people in charge that they could handle the situation. Ain't nobody know all this was gonna come together the way that it came together. And secondly, what's she supposed to say? Because I know what I would say is, my nigga, can you get here, have a glass of horchata the fuck up. Get out my way. I got shit to take care of right now. We're clearly in a crisis. We could talk about how much I failed a little later. Right now, Altadena and Palisades on fire. Let me go get my feet up under me, figure out what the hell happened, and I'll get back to you. Nigga, I just landed. You right. I'm sorry. I ain't know. God damn it. I didn't know. Like, how was I supposed? I ain't got no crystal ball, cuz I'm on my way. Shit, there's a fire chief. Why you ain't hit him up? So there's that. But far be it for me to put words in her mouth. The fire hydrants. So here's the thing about the fire hydrants. Oh, let me throw this one real quick. The Hollywood sign was not on fire, y'all. Sometimes, listen, fact checking is much more easier than you think. If you would just stop for a second, because misinformation is attempting to probably create a scam, right? They trying to hit a lick here. So they're going to give you something that's sensational that ain't necessarily what's going on because they hitting a lick. So you have to remember, like, if somebody hitting a lick, they're not going to necessarily tell you the whole truth, right? Sometimes misinformation is just, it's chaos happening. You just happen to get it wrong, especially about the looting thing. Now, to me, that was malicious. That was the problem with misinformation. There was this video of these young men, these black men carrying this stuff out of these houses in Altadena. Somebody was like, I think it was like a whole ass Nazi was like, look, the looting's already started. They interviewed the lady. The lady was like, that's my brother and his friends from work. I asked them to come get the rest of my stuff out the house. So you talking about his looting is like smells racist because it is racist. So there's that. And some stuff, like I said, like if you take a second, just go back through before you post it, know that you're invoking an emotion and slow down for a second. Another thing you could do is just put something through a Google search. If you just put it through a Google search, you could see if an image was altered in any way, right? Is anyone else posting these things? You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many other things you could look at. A big thing about the fire hydrants. Did we run out of water? The answer is no. Okay, let me get some details for you. So one reservoir in the Santa Ynez Reservoir was closed for repairs. The Santa Ynez Reservoir holds 117 million gallons of water and is located at the heart of the Palisades. But the reservoir closure is not the main reason why the hydrants at higher elevations ran dry, right? A lot of it has to do with water pressure, right? And the amount, the intensity of the fire. Nobody was prepared for that. So it didn't have enough pressure to put the water through because, again, we weren't prepared for this perfect storm that made the fire as big as it was. Even if the reservoir, the leader of the DWP said, you know, even if the reservoir was full, we still would have had the pressure issue because of the intensity of the fire. So this again, how dare you make me defend the government, but at least be mad at them for the right reasons. So, did the budget get cut by 17 million? And the answer is a little tricky. Now, the LA Times and the BBC have reported this. It's not as simple as y'all was understaffed and you ain't had no money. Now, we had a surplus of equipment. And at the time, since nobody got a crystal ball, a lot of that surplus, the extra that we have, was sent off to Ukraine. Why? Because it was extra. You following me? So we sent it, but it was like, what was the extra? Like, I didn't know we was gonna need the extra. Sometimes I feel like y'all think the government really do be telling the future, and sometimes they don't. Like, you be prepared, but you have like numbers based on your best guess. Now, again, don't have me defending the government. I'm just saying sometimes it's like that. So here we go. Although Southern California is currently, follow me, experiencing a drought, this is about whether we had enough water. The data shows that the reservoirs are almost all currently above historic average at this time of year, and none were at significant low levels. Now, let me fact check the fact check. What they say is we didn't set a record this time. Like every year, we be setting a record on lows. But if you remember at the beginning of 2024 and the beginning of 2023, yo, it rained. I had to redo the freaking ground in my backyard. Like it was bad. So our levels are on average more than they have been. Now, don't get me wrong, we still in a drought. It's just not as bad as it was. I mean, there was a time when you had to, like, if you went to a restaurant, they didn't just give you water. Like, you had to ask for a glass of water because they was like, we just ain't got it. So our levels did come up a little bit on average. So it wasn't necessarily that, oh, Gavin Newsom released the water for the fishies. Now, if he'd have released it, now, I mean, I don't understand why you think that him saving that water would have saved us from this problem. It wouldn't have. Would it have helped? I mean, I guess, but like not the way you think it would have helped, right? So that's being that. Now, as far as the budget, the 17 million. Okay, so for the last financial year, the LA Fire Department budget was cut by 17 million, right? 17.6 million. Now, the LA Fire Chief, Kristen Crowley, told CNN that the budget cut had severely affected the department's ability to respond to the disaster, right? So that's real. She said the department was already understaffed, and the elimination of civilian positions like mechanics had meant 100 fire apparatuses were out of service. Now, so Mayor Bass responded to this criticism. She was saying that there were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation that we were dealing with over the last couple of days. So she was like, look, dog, like, it wouldn't have made no difference. Now, that smells a little bit like an excuse because, of course, it would have made a difference. But that's not the part I want to talk about. I don't know why she ain't say this stuff. So check this out. So according to the LA Times, after the 2024-2025 budget was passed, the city council approved, so watch this, $53 million in pay raises for the firefighters and $58 million in new kits, such as fire trucks. So once the funding was taken into the account, the department's operation budget actually grew. You follow me? So we did this budget cut as far as like a line item that lost these things, but then brought this money over here on this side, right? And the LA Fire Department had overall budget approaching almost 1 billion, right? And also isn't the only department responding to the fires, right? So the forest fire protections, all that good stuff. So there's other people that normally take care of the forest isn't is a department different than the LA Fire Department, right? You following me? So yeah, there was a budget cut, but there was also a budget raise. It just came in other ways. Now, that being said, I don't know how they spend the money. I don't know how that stuff break down. Sometimes I don't understand the way they do these budgets. It don't make sense to me either. But it's not as simple as, well, if you wouldn't have cut their budget, this wouldn't have happened. It's not that simple. Now, did we sell the water rights to corporations? Absolutely. Water rights being sold, right? People that make these pistachios, they own a big percentage of LA's natural water is privatized. Again, you can refer to The Block is Hot, the original one. Even some of your utility bills, believe it or not, those are private companies. But y'all love capitalism, right? Now, another one we want to talk about is the incarcerated firefighters. Now, this is a big deal. If this is true, 30% of the people fighting these fires are incarcerated. They do, in fact, make $5.80 or up to $10.24 a day. I'm going to say that again. That's what they make a day. Not $5 an hour, $5 a day. Now, you can earn an additional $1 per hour responding in emergencies, right? Now, there's a great thread on Threads from a former incarcerated firefighter who was incarcerated in California in 2009 to 2012. Now, again, you can't believe the internet. I'm going to give you some pointers as to how you shouldn't believe the internet a little later. But like, yo, check this out. So it's voluntary, first of all. You get to volunteer to be able to be a part of the incarcerated firefighters program. Now, again, you making pennies. Now, why that's okay, believe it or not, is the 13th Amendment, which is the indentured servitude clause inside of the 13th Amendment that freed the slaves. They said, but we could also make you work if you're incarcerated as a part of your punishment. We can make you, and that's why they only pay you pennies. Now, y'all may or may not remember, but there was a bill on the California ballot that literally said slavery. I can't make this stuff up. And we voted for it. Now, there are in this program, you obviously have to be, well, not obviously. There are a few stipulations. You have to be, in a nonviolent, right? You have to be a minimum security status. You have to have no active warrants, no physical, medical, psychiatric conditions, right? You have to have a recent clear of disciplinary history, less than 8, and you have to have less than 8 years remaining on your sentence, and you have to have no convictions of serious violence, sex, arson, or escape attempts, right? So there's a very particular group of people that are allowed to do this, again, because it's involuntary or because it's voluntary, and you get to be off site. So you stay on a campsite. They're 24-hour shifts. They give you food, right? And depending on your particular like prison location, oftentimes your experience can be much different, like anything. You know what I'm saying? There's a human thing, right? And the people that they choose, obviously, it's still being selected because it's involuntary or because it's voluntary. And they have to approve, like, okay, you meet all these requirements, but who do we really want to be out for 2 weeks with? So hopefully, the person that's working at the prison is like, cool. You know what I'm saying? And of course, they want it to be a good hang like anything else. So, of course, we're working hard. Of course, this is voluntary. Of course, it's grueling. And of course, you're making pennies. But I'm gonna read this again just for y'all start just thinking everybody in jail is the same. Again, you have to have a minimum security status, no active warrants, no physical, medical, or psychiatric conditions. You have to have recently clear disciplinary history, less than 8 years remaining on your sentence, and no convictions of serious violence, sex, arson, or escape attempts. That, like, of course, like, these are like you doing what you're supposed to do. You serving your time. You made a mistake at one point. You getting your act together, right? And you get out there. They said they feed you well. You stay on these things, and you get to have time knocked off of your sentence, right? You get to have time knocked off of your parole. Now, if everything works out, yes, when you get out, you are allowed to apply for certain fire departments, maybe not the LAPD, LAFD. So while you're on site, you get like Cal Fire. Cal Fire are the people that does the training. You get like physical fitness training, you get firefighter training, and it's really because these civilian firefighters, the people that like actually like work for the fire, like you putting their lives, right? Like I'm putting my life in your hands. I need to make sure you know what you're doing. The country or the state saves like billions of dollars by paying them pennies, which obviously is trash, but that's what happens. But you get trained on like chainsaws and all the things you would need, right? How to work like basic hand tools. Now, you're not trained on how to use the fire hose or run an engine, right? And you're not trained as the type of firefighter that requires to go into buildings and rescuing peoples and stuff like that. Their task is to cut a fire break between what is burning and what is yet to burn, right? Which is a very important thing that I remember my mama used to talk about, right? When you get out, you are eligible, right? You are eligible to apply for firefighting jobs at Cal Fire, right? Which has to do more with like the woodland sort of stuff like that, right? So it's not so much that you don't get on the job training that you can't use. Like you still get training that you could use later. Now, granted, again, this is not a defense of that, but also I am not incarcerated. I imagine in an incarcerated situation where this person chose to do this, they're most of them are saying like, yo, of all the situations, I know it's hard, but this is like the dopest thing you can do. And a lot of them people were saying like, yo, like I'm from here too. Like I see the same news you do. I want to help. You feel me? Like I don't know why people in their brain think once a person goes to jail, they stop being a person. Like they still a person. You feel me? So know that like these are the facts and all that good stuff. And lastly, I want to talk about the culture. Now, I need y'all to remember that like everybody in LA ain't rich. Some of these people have had houses passed down. Some of these people have worked 2 and 3 jobs their whole life. I know Janae Aiko says she lost her house. Everybody dissing her, like, buy another one. It's like, nigga, she's from the land. Like, she fought her, like, worked her whole life to get this. Listen, I'm a homeowner right now, but like, y'all, I would be done. Like, if I don't know what I would be, what's the plan B? Like, you start over, bro? Like, have you ever worked on something for 15, 20 years? You just want somebody to be like, I'll start over, bro. Like, no, that's not how the land works. Also, as someone who's been on the ground, coordinating with mutual aid programs and even with government programs, my district council member, she's from the city. She used her powers of government. She opened the city hall right here in Boyle Heights and set up a donation center. But before she could do that, or while she was doing that, the city was already in action. People already coordinating. People already the level of generosity that has been going across this city. Now, if you from an area like Asheville or any other areas that are subjected to natural disasters, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Government can't get to you in time. Sometimes the fire department can't get to you in time. Who get to you first is your neighbors. And this is what we seeing out here is neighbors being neighbors. Artists, rappers, businesses, PacSun being like, look, DM us, we'll send you some clothes. You know what I'm saying? Airbnb being like, yo, it's free. Go ahead. It's all good. My wife, Dr. Amma, refer to her by her prefix, has set up meal trains. She has, within one Google Doc, just of our neighborhood and the school that my daughter goes to, figuring out, okay, who lost their houses, who gonna donate ventilators, who gonna do this. I mean, I'm even having friends who've lost everything, still figuring out how to help. We at Club Real Ones, we did one yesterday. We did a drive yesterday to taking food cards and stuff like that. Like you figure it out. How are we finding each other? Hell, we just are, right? I remember I was at Boyle Heights and we took some stuff to Eagle Rock, and then there was another church over there by the off 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 Cesar Chavez and State. I'm talking to you like you from here, White Memorial, right? So there's a church over there too. I met the pastor, Pastor Manny. He like, how do I tap in with the city? I'm like, the city right over there. Matter of fact, we doing something on Sunday. Y'all could bring some of the stuff y'all got. We gonna take it there. We gonna take it up to the by the time that the city set up the Rose Bowl, like I said before, we already had the stuff. We already had it set up. We already knew everything, like it was already labeled in English, Spanish, Tagalog, like toiletries. You feel me? You know, ropas de damas. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was already set up. We already had it. Why? Because we're from the land. It was already set up. There was water. Like today we took pallets of water to the fire station because that's what they asked for. You know what they asked for? Just like food gift cards. Sure. Here. We just did it. We figured it out. We connected across communities, across towns. And when the government caught up and was ready to get themselves situated, because yeah, they move slower than us. It's too many things happening right now. That's fine. But what you experienced, if somebody handed you without you having to ask a pack of tampons, toilet paper, and some toothbrushes, why we already had that and why you just had it is anarchy. That's what that is. You know why the fire department showed up? Because you sure ain't pay for it. You say, yes, you did. You paid for it by your taxes. Yes, nigga, socialism. That's what that is. You know who canceling your insurance? Capitalism. That's what that is. This is why we say the stuff we say. But that's the culture here. And you know what we doing? Why they doing that? I got DM'd so many times, people of psychologists, therapists that are like, look, let me know if people are going through some trauma and experience right now. I'm ready to sit with them. We meeting people that's like, listen, let me teach you how to read your policy. We figuring it out. Don't sign nothing. People helping people. It's just happening. You would say, well, that's just people being good neighbors and taking care of themselves. I would say, aha, correct. This is what we mean at Cool Zone. This is what we mean by leftists. It's like you just do the shit because it's the right shit to do. You don't wait, fam. And that's what's happening on the ground. Now, ways you can help, let me tell you something. We need air purifiers. We need gift cards. We got everything else. Like, and that stuff you can send through the mail. Now, of course, we'll put in the show notes all kind of links and ways for which you can help. But your best bet is if you're going to send stuff, send the gift cards. I love this city, man. We'll be all right to live and die in LA. And I think I'm going to sum it up with something I saw on social media, like with all the like trash talking we hearing around LA about LA is you know, the city's literally on fire because of the drug, you know, for whatever reason, the city's on fire. Sometimes the wind can blow you over. Sometimes the prices are astronomical and really unsustainable. And sometimes the very ground shakes up under us and knocks down buildings with earthquakes. But even with all that, I still don't want to live where you live. LA on mine. Hood politics, y'all.